It was probably about 4 years ago that I came across strength training and why that might be useful to me.
Do you mind me asking how old you are now?
I just turned 71. 4 years ago, we got started with this group and I started some weight training. But then I had a heart attack and that really knocked my confidence. Really, then I didn't feel the confidence to go back to the strength training. All I did was go for longish walks to try and get my heart rate up. It was in December that my first grandson was born. I want to be strong enough to be able to play with him, to lift him. And I remember on that webpage of yours, you had some images of somebody lifting the grandchild, and then next to it, an exercise that you could be doing with a kettlebell. That's what gave me the focus back in February to start working on strength training. I'd heard of snacktivities before, this sort of thing saying, well, look, it's better to do something than nothing. If you just say, I can't do 45 minutes, but can you do 10 minutes? I thought, well, yeah, okay, let's do 10 minutes or 15 minutes. The psychology of the snacktivity is to get yourself started, create the habit. I think that's the thing I found that's the most important. And keeping a record, and just doing simple little things like putting the number 1, week 1, achieved, and even writing something to yourself underneath that says, well done. Don't have to wait for somebody else to say you're brilliant, just tell yourself.
Today, I speak with Steve, a 71-year-old who up until 18 weeks ago had never done any strength training. And he's now been working through a program and he's confidently preparing to be able to lift his grandson. And when he travels back from Spain to see him, to be able to easily get his bag into the overhead storage on aeroplanes. Like a lot of us, Steve thought that the gym, particularly the weights area, wasn't for people like him. It was for those other people. He shares how he overcame some of those psychological barriers, particularly around the fact that he's had a previous heart attack and was nervous about getting into activity again. He talks about his love of these shorter sessions, which he calls snacktivities, which I love, rather than these big, long sessions. You'll discover that Steve's transformation isn't about becoming a bodybuilder or anything related to that. It's about being strong enough to enjoy the moments that matter most. Steve proves that it's never too late to start. Sometimes the smallest steps can lead to the biggest changes. If you've ever thought that you're too old to start or that you're just not a gym person, then this conversation should change your mind. And if you are looking for a bit more help, then I have a free ebook that Steve has used. And you can find that by going to nevertoldtolift.com/ebook. But for now, let's jump straight into the interview. So welcome, Steve, and thank you for joining us on the Never Too Old to Lift podcast. Excited to sort of get into hearing your story and how you've kind of found getting started with strength training. But I suppose before we do, it'd be interesting to get an idea about what your sort of relationship with exercise has been up until more recently, and what kind of exercise has been your main focus in the past.
Hi, right. Well, thanks for having me, Chris. Yeah, I've always been a sporty person. Sort of football mad as a kid. Played lots of football until I was sort of mid-teenagers, and I switched to playing tennis. Played quite a bit of tennis, some squash until my mid-20s, and sort of started work. It became a bit more difficult. Carried on with the squash because it was more time efficient. Did some jogging, bit of weekend cycling. As I got into middle age, I did start playing a bit of five-a-side football after work. So I remember being quite pleased when I was 40 playing five-a-side football. Then thinking, wow, still running around playing football. That was quite a good feeling. I liked hiking, going walking in the countryside. And then just stuck with jogging, really. So mostly aerobic, never anything particularly related to strength training. Never particularly attracted to it. I suppose it was also part of that sort of stereotype of the muscly guys in the gym, and I felt probably a bit intimidated about going to gyms from that point of view. And then 12 years ago, I moved to Spain. And again, it was mostly jogging. I did some long distance walking. So I did a bit of walking on one of the caminos here. So I didn't do the whole thing in sort of like 2 or 3 weeks. I was just doing a sort of a week or a few days. And then It was probably about 4 years ago that I came across strength training and why that might be useful to me.
And do you mind me asking how old you are now?
I just turned 71.
71. So about the age of 67 is when you started to sort of hear about strength training and start to think that it might be something for you.
That's right. Well, one of the things I've always had a bit of a battle with is my waistline. And so I would like to say perhaps that the reason I got into strength training was because I thought it was good, all the health benefits it would bring me. But actually, it was really pure vanity because the, the waistline was spreading. And it was something my dad had this enormous pot belly and very handy for resting his pint of Guinness on. But apart from that, it didn't look particularly attractive to me. And so I've always had that sort of battle with my waistline. And I was thinking, right, okay, running and diet, and didn't seem to be working very well. So I started doing the Google search, and then I came across the idea that strength training would be a thing that would help to control your waistline because of the importance of building muscle. I can't remember exactly now the science behind how the muscle and the relationship between the muscle and the glucose and the build-up of fat around your abdomen. But it was then also that I discovered that that the existence of what they call, what I've come to know as the toffee problem, thin outside, fat inside, and that seemed to describe pretty well what my condition was, because I'm a pretty skinny looking bloke basically, but I always used to describe myself as the stick insect that swallowed a pea, very skinny, and then this little pot belly was sticking out. So that's what originally got me into it, and then I discovered that there's the issue of sarcopenia, the loss of muscle mass that older people experience, and this is all sort of a revelation to me. So that's when I decided that I would try to explore it. But that was once the pandemic had started. So I was part of an online exercise group then. It was based in the UK. It's actually my ex-son-in-law who was a personal trainer at the time. So it's a group of older people, and we would exercise online 3 times a week. And he gradually introduced some weights into that. So that is when I started to develop that interest in strength training.
And how did you find those early kind of workouts and introduction with starting to use some weights?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I guess to begin with, it was we weren't doing anything with particularly heavy loads. I think when I was starting out on those sessions, I was probably just using some 2 kilo dumbbells, so I was fairly comfortable with that. On the other hand, things like planks and push-ups. I mean, I've never been able to do a push-up in my life. That's why the podcast I saw recently, I think it was with Kim, who said she'd never been able to do a push-up and now she can do 6. So if I could do that, that would be great. So that took of inspiration. That was something positive for me.
Yeah, like she started at the age of 62 and never done a push up, and like I say, managed to do 6 after having kind of been working through the program. So yeah, it's really inspiring. But yeah, I think certainly a realistic goal as well. So because you mentioned initially it was more the aesthetics and the weight loss that was the main driver and motivation. Through a couple of emails you've sent me, it sounds like the motivation and the goals have changed slightly. How's that evolved?
Well, yeah. Well, the thing that it was just after, so it was about 4 years. 4 years ago, we got started with this group, and I started some weight training. But then I had a heart attack, and that really knocked my confidence because I was really feeling good with the exercise. It was all going well. I was feeling fitter, and it was a real boost of confidence. But then, not surprisingly, that knocked me back, and I didn't really do it 4 years ago. And I was very lucky. I mean, I got to hospital pretty quickly. I was very well looked after. I did a rehabilitation program, which focuses more on cardio, although there was a little bit of weights. But really, then I didn't feel that the confidence to go back to the strength training. All I did was go for longish walks to try and get my heart rate up. So as you were mentioning the change. It was in December that my first grandson was born, and I was thinking, right, okay, uh, I want to be strong enough to be able to play with him, to lift him. And I remember seeing that on your website. One of the things you talked about was people not being getting started, but then losing the habit because they didn't have a goal or a purpose. And once a difficult moment arrived or there was a break for some reason, they never went back to it. So and I remember on that web page of yours, you had some images of somebody lifting the grandchild, and then next to it, an exercise that you could be doing with a kettlebell or some dumbbells or whatever, like a deadlift or a press or the kettlebell swing because you're swinging your grandchild. And I thought, yeah, that looks just what I need, because that gives me a focus to for when I go and visit, because he's in the UK. So I thought, right, that's one thing, and the other thing is, when I'm traveling, I've got my luggage, so I want to be able to, lift my bag. I'm on the train or a plane or something like that. I want to be able to lift my bag and put it in the rack, or get from A to B without struggling. So that's what gave me the focus back in February to start working on strength training, and I am pleased with the progress I've made.
Amazing. And I think it's almost quite nice in one sense that you've got the not being in the same country as your grandson and having a specific date in mind that you're working towards. It is that date that you are aiming for. Whereas some people who see the grandchildren a bit more frequently think, well, I'm managing okay at the moment. I could probably put it off a little bit till they get a bit heavier. And I think actually that definitive time frame does make motivating yourself a little bit easier. So there's probably a benefit from that side of things.
Yeah. So I'll be going over at the beginning of September. So there's my target, and there's just like little things like when you book your flight. So I've gone for the cheaper end, but even then, I think the weight limit on the bag is like 10 kilos. So I think, okay, so I'm not going to be able to take anything heavier than 10 kilos. But if I have got 10 kilos, can I lift that? It's almost like a dead weight, and then press it onto the rack above me. So I've even got that in my mind. That I can move my luggage without having to ask someone to help me.
Yeah, and you can even think of it as, although most of those type of bags have wheels, there might be a bit of ground you come across that the wheels just aren't working and it's too awkward. So then you have to pick up and carry, and that's where the exercise or movement pattern of gait or carry whilst holding a bag. I mean, it's called a suitcase carry exercise for a reason. And yeah, the ability to do that for sort of a particular distance and actually practicing that means you've got the confidence that you could do it if needed, and let's say being able to push it up above your head. So I imagine you then include shoulder press in your workout program with the lifting the suitcase up into the overhead bag as a kind of goal and something you can envisage.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing the press since the beginning, albeit with a fairly light weight. So currently I'm on the 5 kilo dumbbells. So I've got one in each hand, and I'm pushing the 5 kilos with each hand. I have got a rucksack that I could put the 2 dumbbells in and practice pressing that, I suppose. But pressing has always been part of the even before I came across your course and the recommended functional move.
And the fact that you're doing it with 5 kilograms, and I imagine multiple times rather than just one repetition,
Yeah,
you're then
I'm doing three
yeah,
reps at
you're
the moment.
then only going to have to do it once at a
Sorry,
time.
three
So
sets, and at the moment I can go to 10 repetitions on each of the sets. But by the third set, the getting to 10, that's pretty close to failure. So I'm stopping. I'm stopping at 10 because I don't want. The other side of me is thinking, okay, I have this target, but um, I don't want to push myself to the point where I finish up injuring myself. So I'm trying to strike that balance between doing the exercises 2 or 3 times a week and gradually moving towards that target rather than thinking I must be there in September.
yeah, and it's important to have that the kind of awareness that if you push too hard too soon, there's a risk of injury. Particularly if this is all relatively new to you as well. So that's really sensible. But equally, it's knowing that you do need to keep pushing slightly out your comfort zone to be able to get to the target you set for yourself. With those kind of concerns in mind, going back to when you started following the heart attack, how was the psychology of that? Was there any sort of fears around your heart health whilst getting started with strength training?
Well, it was a few years after. I mean, it was this current bout of strength training was 4 years after the heart attack, and I suppose that I mean there's a little bit there, but on the other hand, I'm doing things like the weekly shop, having to carry bags. So we go in the car, but I mean, I have to carry the bags from the car. Some of the bags quite heavy. I was able to manage those. We've done previous holidays carrying my case, maybe not 10 kilos, but I mean carrying my cases around. So yeah, I was reasonably confident, and also because I started slowly. I mean, I think that was the thing. Um, I mean, I've tweaked my program since following your course, but for example, I started off doing things like, well, I suppose it's a thing like we talked about this earlier, like the so-called snacktivity, because that was one of the things I found perhaps more difficult was the laziness in getting started and the thought of, do I want to do 45-minute sessions? So I thought, well, okay, if I'm boiling the kettle and making myself, a coffee or something like that, I can do some squats in the kitchen. I can do some push-ups against the kitchen counter and stuff like that. So I wasn't doing long sessions, but I felt I could do 15 press-ups against the kitchen counter. It's comfortable, no problem. I could do 15 squats without any, just using body weight. So I really I knew I could do that, and so I thought, okay, just take it easy, and um, and take it from there. And then if you feel that it's you've gone too far or you're going too fast, then just slow down. So I think the confidence was pretty much back by the time at the beginning of this year, and I think also, like we've already said, having my grandson, that gave me that sort of desire to be a bit stronger and fitter so that I could enjoy my time with him.
I love the idea of snacktivities and even the word snacktivities. It's not one that I've sort of used before, and it's one I sort of wish I thought of myself. But it's it's brilliant because a lot of people do get put off by the idea that if they're going to do 4 or 5 exercises in a workout, and if you're really pushing to fatigue and having the rest periods, then it lengthens the workout to sort of the 40-45 minutes. And again, if the gym and the strength based exercises has never been particularly appealing to you, then that's a long session or commitment that it's quite easy to talk yourself out of doing it if you're not sort of enjoying it as much as you might want to. And obviously you sort of mentioned it started off with these sort of snack activities of doing it when you're making a coffee or having a few minutes spare. when did it sort of transition into a little bit more sort of formal? Because obviously then you're going to start using weights. I mean, do you still do it where you've just got the weights to hand and it's while the kettle's boiling, you do?
It's more formal now. So it started, I suppose it was around about the beginning of February. I had been over in the UK and I'd seen my grandson for the first time in around mid-January. And so when I came back, that was when I decided that I was going to make it a more formal thing. So come on, you've got to create a habit. And and I'd heard of snacktivities before, this sort of thing saying, well, look, it's better to do something than nothing. If you just say, I can't do 45 minutes, but can you do 10 minutes? I thought, well, yeah, okay, let's do 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So I think it was an article I came across as well in the Guardian. I think what caught my attention was this push-up thing, because I could never do a push-up. So it was about how to start from scratch and work up to. And I thought, okay, right, let's do a little bit each week. And I suppose I had the experience of this group from during the pandemic. So I just decided I would do 3 upper body exercises on one day for 10 to 15 minutes, and then the following day, so that I had because I knew already that you had to have this sort of rest before you repeated those activities. So the following day I would then do more lower body sort of squats type stuff. And so I alternated, and I thought, okay, instead of doing like 2 big sessions, I could do maybe 4 or 5 smaller, shorter sessions during the week, just spread them out. So that I guess they've got, as I progress, they've got a little bit longer, which I think about the interesting thing about the psychology of the snacktivity is to get yourself started. And when you get started and then you feel like, oh, I've achieved something, you feel a sense of success, then it doesn't seem to be such a big effort. In fact, you think, oh, it's time for my exercises. I've got to get them done. So and I always do them in the morning. So that's why I decided on the snacktivity, because it'd be short and I'm more likely to do it and then try and create the habit. And I've always been a bit nerdy from that point of view. I've always liked making tables of stuff online. So I decided to make a table and make a record each day of what I've done. Because I think, as you said in one of your earlier podcasts, and you say on the course, keep a record, otherwise you won't remember what you've done. And that's true. It's been very helpful. And then, as you said in your Gamify, your sort of Duolingo podcast, I put at the end of the week, I put a number there. So that's how I know I'm on 18 weeks, because I've got number 18 in big numbers at the end in the note box. And it works, because it's that thing that the Duolingo does, and it's don't break your streak, and that's where I am.
Brilliant. And I think I don't know if you've read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I haven't, but I've come across it several times.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book, but there's a section in there that he talks about what's the minimum you can do to kind of get started that will lead to everything else evolving. So, for example, he talked about writing a book. His goal was always to sit down and write a page, and that wasn't a big daunting task. So it didn't take a lot of effort for him to sit down and write a page. And inevitably what happened is once he got to a page, he carried on writing a chapter or two. And but if he'd sat down with the aim of writing a chapter or two, he probably wouldn't have sat down as many times as he did. Where for him, the only thing he needed to do to tick off tick the box that day to say he'd done his writing was to do the bare minimum. And he always did more than the bare minimum. But yeah, that was it. So same thing as if you've got that snacktivity in mind of, I'm just going to do 2 exercises or 3 exercises. Sometimes I imagine you might get in the mood where actually, well, I might do another set of them all, or I might actually add a 4th exercise in. And once you're in the mood and in the sort of flow of it, you can then do more. And actually having that flexibility to take advantage of the motivated days when you're really motivated, or sometimes, the days where actually all you want to do is a bare minimum, it's not been a big task to get started in the first place, and to be able to tick that off with. So yeah, I think it's a great way of doing it, and also it makes it. I think it's for a lot of people the 5 shorter sessions or 4 shorter sessions can be useful as well. And I don't, because did you have any issues around shortness of breath and energy levels as a result of sort of a heart attack? No, no, because some people find that they do suffer either with that or just generalized fatigue, and if they try and do 4 or 5 exercises, they feel completely wiped out for 2 or 3 days afterwards, and then thought of going back again is really not appealing. So actually doing just 2 exercises and not having that effect, it's easier to go back more frequently than to try and do just 2 bigger sessions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I do, I mean, I was fairly confident in that respect because I go walking all the time here. I mean, not out for a countryside walk, but I mean, it's a fairly walkable place where I live. Outside here, there's a fairly steep hill, so not long after I had the heart attack, I was walking up that hill without any problems. I always walk up the stairs here, so it's just under 50 steps from the ground floor up to our apartment. So that's another thing I record on my, my table, how many times I've come up the stairs. So like yesterday, I came up those stairs 3 times to the apartment. I'm not particularly out of breath. When I did the cardiac rehabilitation, one of the things they got us to do, we're on a static bike. We had to hit our heart rate at a particular range. Each person was given their own range, and we had to pedal on this static bike for half an hour, maintaining that level. So one of the things I do is with my watch, I keep an eye on my heart rate. So, for example, I was doing some split squats recently, and at the end of them, I was feeling pretty exhausted, and I checked my heart rate, and it was above the range that they had given me when I was doing the rehab. So what I decided to do then was just to cut down the number of repetitions rather than keep pushing, and just say, okay, right, well, look, just do as many as feels comfortable. Don't push yourself to almost becoming distressed. So yeah, so recently I've just started doing some split squats with 8-kilo kettlebells. I'm just doing 5, and that's enough for now. And then gradually, as I get a bit stronger, I can increase that. But that feels comfortable. I'm not pushing myself any further.
Yeah, brilliant. And because we always have to work to the thing that limits us the most, and whilst you might have the strength to do more and even lift a bit more weight straight away, sometimes the rest of our body isn't caught up to that, and we have to sort of just take it. And whether it's some people it's shortness of breath, sometimes it might be the heart rate getting too higher than you might like too quickly. Sometimes, like I say, it's back to that fatigue. Sometimes it's joint pain, and sometimes we have to work to the level of the thing that's holding us back first, and then as that improves, then we can start really trying to find that fatigue point, and whether that's still at 5 repetitions or whether you kind of do it higher reps again and then come back down with higher weight. But no, it's a really sensible approach there. Because have there been any other sort of slight niggles or complaints that you've had to kind of think about, whether it's pre-existing or actually this has exposed some of them that you hadn't realised were there?
Not particularly. I'm just trying to think. I suppose that one thing I do notice it's that thing about working to failure is the unevenness sometimes I've got in the strength. So it's not so much a niggle or an injury. So, for example, my left arm is not as strong as my right arm. So I noticed that actually what is failing is my left arm and not my right arm. So I stopped because my left arm's the one that's giving way when I'm trying to do the press, for example. So but I wouldn't call that as so much as it's not a niggle. It's just an unevenness in my strength, I guess.
Which is very common, and it's very rare for anyone to actually be perfectly symmetrical in terms of their strength. And ideally, we want to try and close the gap so that we get as close as possible. But there is some kind of argument and discussion that to be made of either just working to the limitations of the left arm and just the right uses the same weight and you're just working them together, and the left eventually gets to the point where your right is starting to feel tired at the same rate as the left. But I also argue sometimes it's better to maybe use a separate weight for the right arm to push that, use a higher weight to push that to fatigue as well. And that whilst there's a fear that you're increasing the imbalance because the right is getting even stronger while the left is still trying to catch up to it, all you're doing is actually just giving it a better target to catch up to. And eventually the rate of improvement of the right will slow down whilst the left is still a bit quicker, until eventually they meet a little bit higher, rather than just purposely holding the right one back whilst you're waiting for the left. You could be pushing both. And so that's something to sort of think about as well. And I imagine you're right-handed.
I am, yeah. And I don't know how much residual strength you have from activities you used to do in the past, but I mean, I played a lot of tennis. I mean, so you had that's a classic case of like having a slightly odd looking body because of the force sort of tends to go diagonally through from your left leg through to your right arm. So I had like quite a strong right forearm, and all I did with the left hand was throw the ball up. Yeah, so it was all the effort was going through the left leg and the right arm.
Yeah, and some of it will be residual strength in the muscles themselves. Some of it will be residual sort of motor patterning, we call it. So that the brain's communication with the right arm in order to access strength, it's a lot more fluent and clearer, where it doesn't feel familiar or natural for the left arm to be used at the same intensity in the same way. So sometimes that's where the catching up point comes in, is the brain's got to work out how to use the left in the most efficient way to do the movement. And that's why you see quite big improvements quite quickly. And then you'll get to a point where it feels like it all plateaus a bit. And that's because you've maximized the efficiency of the brain working out how to use the muscle strength you've already got. And then you have to actually wait for the muscles to get stronger themselves. But yeah, if you're naturally right-handed, you tend to have a slightly stronger right hand or dominant hand than your non-dominant hand, which is why it's so normal for that imbalance to exist. But like I say, we want to try and bridge that gap where we can, and or close the gap between them.
Yeah.
In terms of, you've mentioned the course a couple of times, and you initially started with the ebook leading into the course. I'm curious to see kind of how you found your programming of exercises, or the way that you've approached this has changed since finding both of those.
Right. So, well, I think what's helped give me a more sort of methodical approach is the understanding I've got from the different levels of repetition and what that can help you achieve in terms of strength, hypertrophy, and endurance. I wasn't really aware of that, and so that gave me more of an insight into when to make the change, when to progress, when to increase the load, for example, and also the idea of the rest in between the sets. So that has changed. It is more methodical now, and I make some notes to say, okay, you're doing okay at that weight. Maybe next week or 2 weeks, it's time to think about increasing the number of repetitions or increasing the load. So I think I'm more aware of how to approach that, and also things like I've introduced the deadlift, and I wasn't doing a deadlift, so the importance of the hinge. There's one or two things I'm not doing. I mean, is from a practical point of view, the rotational movements. That was quite a good tip on your course, by the way, about the doorstop thing. Um, but the way our flat works, it's I can't remember what the tip was now exactly about how to set up the stop and which side of the door you should be on. And the side of the door I should be on, given the strength of the door frame, it's not going to work here. I'm going to have to go down to the park, which is right next to us, and find a tree or a lamppost or something, and find somewhere strong to do the rotational stuff. And ironically, one of the things I haven't done, given the luggage issue, is I haven't done the carry, and that's something I could do in the house. So I've got the dumbbells ready in the rucksack, and that's something I can be working on in the next month.
Perfect. And yeah, for anyone listening there that wasn't quite sure, the doorstop is a door anchor that you can use to attach a resistance band to. That's it. So it's a little foam stopper with a fabric loop, and you put the fabric draped over the top of the door or the side of the door, shut the door, the foam stopper gets stuck on one side, and the loop is then there at whatever height you need it on the other side, and then you can attach a resistance band to it and then be able to perform some exercises with a resistance band that you can't necessarily do, or you wouldn't trust your door handle to do with that. And so I'm trying to think of other ways, and I can get back to you on potentially other exercises that you can use, not necessarily a resistance band. So, for example, one of them is called a Russian twist, where you sit in a slight sit-up position. You hold a dumbbell and you sort of rotate round, tap it to one side of you, and then come back round again. And that gets a little bit of the resistance into rotation.
That's interesting, because it was one we used to do. The group I was in during the pandemic, we used to do that one. I didn't realise that was a similar movement. Right.
Yeah, just anything that adds rotation of the body against some resistance is good to do. Again, some people don't like the position of the sit-up type position in there, but if that's someone you're familiar with, that could be worth trying and adding in instead.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. That's a top tip.
Good. And then in terms of since joining the course and the ebook, have you kept to your kind of 3 exercises and alternating, or did you end up sort of changing that slightly?
No, well, I've kept the pattern I'd established. Because one of the things you talked about on the course was, this idea, like of having the rest period, and you did mention the possibility of, like one day doing upper body, and then the following day doing lower body, and then you resting the upper body until and then you could leave it until the following day. So maybe Monday. This is the pattern I've tried to establish. Monday's upper body, Tuesday's lower body, Wednesday's upper body again, or a pattern like that. And I manage usually about 4 sessions, sometimes 5 sessions a week.
So I think for anyone doing just say 2 sessions, which is kind of the minimum anyone want to do, or the guidelines say that we should be doing, if you're just doing 2 sessions with a couple of days in between, then it's worth doing each session as a full body session. If you're doing, like say, what you're doing of trying to do 4 or 5 sessions a week, if you're trying to do full body every time, you haven't got enough rest days in there. So splitting it into upper body, lower body, or some people that go to the gym a bit more regularly, they do leg day, push day, pull day, back to leg day, back to push day, back to pull day. So you're kind of using different muscles on different workouts. So the other muscle groups get to have that recovery period, which is important for the increase of strength is a recovery just as much as a workout.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, it's a sort of like it takes me, I don't know, 25 minutes, a half an hour, when you're including the rest in between the sets. And I think, well, I'm more likely to do that than each day or 4 or 5 days a week than I'm going to do 2 sessions that are 45, 50 minutes. I'm probably going to say to myself, no, it's too much. Can't be bothered. Whereas 20 minutes, 25 minutes seems doable to me, and that gives me the motivation to do it.
And I think it was back to Atomic Habits, the book. There's an argument that actually picking things to do more frequently means you're more likely to keep your routine. So someone who, for example, me and my Duolingo, is I've committed to do it every day, so I can't talk myself out of a day. I won't do it today, and I'll do it tomorrow instead. And like I said in that podcast, I've crossed 1,000, and I think I'm on 1,050 now day streak. Whereas if I commit to try and do something 2 or 3 times a week, it's easy to get to a day where you don't feel quite in the mood to go, oh, I'll just leave it a day, and then tomorrow comes, I'll just leave it a day. I've still got 3 days I could be doing it in. And then suddenly you put the pressure on having to do it in those 3 days. And yeah, when you've got the choice of which day to do it on, it gives you a choice not to do it. Whereas, yeah, if you're doing it or committed every day, or 5 days a week, if you're doing it every weekday and you're just leaving the weekends off, then you don't have a choice. You've got to do it in some form. So yeah, that can be a benefit to the motivation and the consistency.
The challenge is going to come, I think, in next month, because we're due to be away. I think in August we'll be away for 3 of those 4 weeks. So I'm thinking, okay, so I'm going to. One of the things I want to do before I go away is have a look at You've got a short video on doing the 7 functional movements with the resistance band. So I won't be taking my selection of weights with me. So I'll take the resistance band and try and do something while I'm away. Otherwise, that's one of the things where I think it's a sort of one of the things that breaks the habit. And then when you come back afterwards, I know what will happen. I'll come back. We've got a week before I go away again, and I'll think, no point. I just and then I finish up doing nothing in August, and in September I'll be going to see my grandson. So what I'm hoping is I'll go away, I'll take my resistance band, and I'll still have that in the back of my mind to say, okay, come on, keep it going.
And it comes back to what I said earlier of what's the minimum you can do to feel like you've done something, to be able to keep ticking off on your chart that you've done another week. And even if it's a 10-minute resistance band workout that you do, rather than feel like you have to do a half-hour workout, then you can still say, right, I've done what I set out to do given the circumstances I'm in at the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself. And equally, we don't need to try and push to fatigue or try and kind of progress in the same way as you were. This is about what is the least I can do to make myself feel like I'm still doing something, and use a bit of resistance to maintain some of the strength in that time. But yeah, it's not a long enough time to lose all the progress you've made today.
No.
And coming into that then, the progress, because you mentioned as you started to see some success and see the progress happening, it was more motivating. Is there any sort of particular either milestones you hit or any success that you saw that felt particularly motivating that helped?
Well, yeah, I mean, lifting the doing the press with the 5 kilo dumbbells. I mean, that felt good. I mean, I felt confidence. I felt stronger. I'm thinking, right, I'm lifting stuff now that I couldn't lift several weeks ago. It gave me confidence to think I'll be able to travel independently. I think I haven't been doing any. Well, one thing I have changed since starting the course is the push-ups. I was doing push-ups before I was doing the press, and I moved from the kitchen counter because I could do 15 comfortably to using a kitchen chair, which I have here, sort of like against the sofa, and so it can't move. I have found that a challenge. I mean, I can do 5, and to begin with, there were 5 very shallow ones, and I noticed they're getting deeper and deeper. I stopped a couple of weeks ago once I started doing the course. As I said, I tweaked it. So I increased the load on the press rather than trying to do the push-ups and some press. So I don't know, but there's something about the push-ups that I would like to keep. Actually, what I was thinking is that when I'm on holiday and I haven't got the weights, I can go back to the press-ups and maybe try and do some press-ups on my knees.
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to say, is that could be something you do when you don't have the equipment available to you. And a nice sort of tip that I found quite useful for the halfway houses between, or the progressions from a kitchen work surface, which is quite high, to the floor, which is then a lot more challenging, is using a flight of stairs can be quite useful, because depending on how much space you've got at the end of the stairs, but you can then go to a height that's lower than a kitchen work surface of a few steps up, but your feet are far enough back that you can then do your press ups. And if that becomes easy, you just move down a step. So now your angle is a bit more, till eventually you're kind of on the bottom step, and then eventually just do it on the floor. But you can change your angle quite easily using stairs to do the to do the press up.
Right, that's a good. Yeah.
There, but and the other thing that I would say with the course and ebook is that the exercises I suggest in there are particularly that they're suggestions of what you might want to include in the program, but you're more than welcome to add in other exercises that you either want to achieve, or sometimes people, I don't really mention the isolation exercises where it might be a bicep curl, and again, there's things like the weight loss goal, but some people want just bigger arms, and if they can do that, then that's absolutely fine to add in. Again, if every exercise is an isolation exercise, your workout has to be really big to cover the whole body. But that's where the movement patterns that we cover, the 7 functional movements, work multiple muscle groups at the same time. So it's then being a lot more efficient. But yeah, it's your workout program, your goals and desires that you want to be able to achieve. So you can tweak the programs accordingly for that.
Yeah, well, I think one of the other things I might consider doing while I'm away and I haven't got all the equipment is the more movements for getting up and down. I was talking to friends recently who have a grandson, 10 years old now, but I was explaining to them that I was doing this strength training, and one of the motives was because I wanted the strength to play and live my grandson. And they said, yeah, well, that's good. But they said, what you'll find is that you need to get up and down a lot. Getting up and down off the floor is quite a challenge. And I thought, that's a good point. So I think that's something else I want to incorporate. Not, I know you said in an email to me that the split squat is quite good for that. But I think that's something I want to practice, is sort of like getting up and getting down. I mean, literally, so I'm sitting on the floor and then getting up again. I imagine I'll be doing that quite a lot. And if I was seeing my grandson regularly, I mean, that would be something I would be doing naturally. But I've got to sort of make a sort of program for that, so that I'm ready for when it comes in that 1 week I see him.
Like we say, the split squats is a great way. So the split squat, for anyone listening, is there where you have one foot in front of the other, and you lower your back knee down slowly to the floor like a lunge, but you're not stepping into the lunge. Your feet are already in the position. But often, if you are sitting on your bum, most people will get onto, and they want to get up, they get onto all fours. They'll then, with the hands on the floor, put 1 foot in front, and now you're in that split squat position. And then using their hands for a bit of support, or maybe on their knees or on a chair next to them, they then push themselves up into standing. And again, with the split squat, if you can then start to be able to do it, to get your back knee down, tap it to the floor and come back up again without needing to put your hands on anything, and you've got the balance there. And even better, if we can start adding some weight into that, then suddenly, yeah, if you're on the floor, and I remember this vividly from when my son's 5 now, but when he was a lot smaller and kind of, wasn't walking or moving yet, you'd have to be on the floor, picking him up, and I couldn't lean forward too much because he didn't quite have the head control. And then so it's being able to hold him securely with 1 foot in front of the other, and then drive up to be able to stand up. And it's a bit like a split squat whilst holding a weight. So yeah, having the confidence to be able to feel like you've got the balance to do that whilst holding a son who you clearly don't, or grandson that you don't want to drop. Then yeah, split squat is the one that's going to benefit. But you could even add it in at the bottom of every split squat. You go into all fours on your bum, then come back up again, and then so you could almost do that as an exercise. Is right, I'm going to get up and down from the floor 10 times, and you might do it leading with each leg 10 times. So you practice it, and again, it becomes a thing that people don't practice. Particularly when a bit older, but they don't know if they can get down on off the floor because they haven't done it in so long, and they don't want to practice it in case they can't get back up. Or if there are people around that could help, they don't want to do it because they're self-conscious and don't want to try practice it in front of anyone. So it gets to a point where they've never done it again until the point they're over, and then they realise they can't do it. And particularly with the way sometimes things can be in the sort of NHS and the ambulance here, it could be hours and hours and hours before anyone can get to them to help them back up off the floor. So yeah, the ability to keep practicing that is a great skill to be able to maintain, particularly, like I say, when you've got a grandson that is going to have some weight to him. And I think even by 2 years old, the average weight is about 12 kilos for a child. So to be able to stand or do a split squat with 12 kilos is a good goal that I set for people as well.
I'll keep that one in mind.
Going back to your initial goal of the losing the weight and the sort of the area around the stomach, has that been something you've noticed changes happening in?
Yeah, well, one interesting thing is I was a bit weight obsessive, and I'm less weight obsessive now, in the sense that the body mass index I came to learn wasn't necessarily that accurate, and the waistline was more of a important indicator. I guess I'd got the waistline more or less under control after the heart attack. I wouldn't have said I had a bad diet before that. I mean, I was vegetarian for many years. Once I moved to Spain, I was eating some fish, but my diet, I had changed my diet a bit, and I've got the waistline under control. And it's one thing I would say. It's difficult to know exactly what's going on, but one thing I would say, since I started doing this, my weights and my waistline have been more consistent. Haven't fluctuated so much. It could be because we've done a bit less traveling since February, and when I travel, then my discipline at the food table is not as good as at home. Let's put it that way. So it could be that, or combination of both. But I think that is one thing I've noticed, is that it's my weight and waistline is, I measure it once a week. I have done for a few years now. Another one of my tables. Bit of a sad story. This.
No, I think it's great because, like I say, you can track it.
Tracking all of this stuff. So that's been good. That's been a positive sign. So that's another thing that's given me some confidence to keep going with it.
And then it's relatively 18 weeks is still relatively early in terms of having started this, but what has the reaction been of others around you, friends and family? So have they noticed a difference, or is there anyone expressing concerns because they think it's potentially something unsafe that you shouldn't be doing? Or
nobody's made any comments on it. The only person who has any concern is my wife, because I've had the heart attack, and I suppose she thinks that I could be overdoing it, and that it's not a good thing. I'm reassuring and saying, look, I'm just taking it slowly. I'm not trying to push myself too fast too soon. She knows what my motives are, my goals are, my purpose for doing it. So no, nobody's really particularly commented on it. I don't tell a lot of people, to be honest. And physically, I mean, I haven't changed that much. I mean, maybe that's one thing to say. Is that one of the things that stops people, particularly women, is this idea that you're going to get too muscly and too bulky. I haven't got biceps that are popping my shirts at the moment. So, I mean, from that point of view, I haven't noticed any difference. Although I quite like that. The other thing, I quite like the idea of the baseline test on your course. So I I did all my measurements a few weeks ago, and I'll do it again in a few weeks. I suppose the only the one thing anybody has ever commented on was when, this is a few years ago now, when they thought I looked too thin. You're losing too much weight. That didn't. I was surprised by. I suppose that's one of the issues, isn't it? When you lose weight, you tend to look thinner in the face, and then we have this idea that if you're looking thin in the face, you're not well or something. I don't know. It doesn't bother me.
No, and yeah, let's say if you're feeling stronger, you're feeling like, because you mentioned earlier you could lift things that you couldn't lift before. Was that just referring to in the gym, or is that actually outside of the gym?
I never go to the gym. It's all at home. I do the stuff.
Oh, sorry, at home. But yeah, in terms of the weights you're lifting, or is that more stuff that just general day-to-day stuff, you're lifting things easier than you were before?
Yeah, well, I noticed it with things like shopping, because just lifting stuff out of a trolley into the car, out of the car, back up. I'm carrying two fairly heavy bags. It's got sort of jars of stuff in it, or liters of milk or water or whatever. So I've noticed that definitely has made a difference.
So I imagine there's a few people that might be listening to this that are feeling kind of inspired to take some action, but still maybe a bit nervous or sitting on the fence. Have you got any advice you give to that person listening that is sort of not sure but wants to take the first step but doesn't know where to start? What would you say to that person?
Well, I would say based on my experience is start at a level you feel comfortable with. It may be something that's very simple. I think the important thing is to create the habit first. And so, in my case, it was doing the press ups against the kitchen counter and doing some squats, and I found that fairly comfortable. And once I could do that on a regular basis, I thought, okay, well, let's introduce some weight. And I just started with, in my case, with 2 kilos, but it could be less, could be a 1 kilo weight, depending on where you are. But I would just say start slowly, build up gradually. Don't create the habit. I think that's the thing I've found that's the most important. And then once you've created the habit, it becomes a bit more enjoyable because you get the satisfaction of thinking, okay, right, I'm ready to move on to the 3 kilos now. And then that gives you that little bit of confidence to think, all right, I'm making progress. I can do this. But yeah, go slowly, not too fast, and then and that way you also avoid any injuries.
Yeah, I think totally agree with everything you said there, and echo the importance of the routine first, because once you've established that, it's a lot easier to make small changes on top of that, and then celebrating the small wins along the way of the small increases. And yes, it might still feel like you're a long way from your ultimate goal, but if we only measure against that, you'll always feel a long way off, and the closer you get, the more likely that is to change anyway. So yeah, celebrating the wins along the way to that is going to help keeping the inspiration to keep sort of in the direction of the bigger goal.
And I think, and keeping a record, and just doing simple little things like putting the number 1, week 1 achieved, and even writing something to yourself underneath that says well done, or little milestones. When you get to 4 weeks, you think that's a month, well done, 4 consecutive weeks. Speak to yourself in a positive way to congratulate yourself. You don't have to wait for somebody else to say you're brilliant. Just tell yourself.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's a great tip. Well, Steve, thank you very much. I can't thank you enough for giving up your time to come and share your experience with it. And what we could probably do is maybe catch up in a year or so and see how how it's been going and what benefits you've noticed in another year of doing this.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thanks. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for all the other podcasts and videos you make. They've been very helpful.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Okay, thanks. If you have been thinking, I'm not a gym person, you're nervous about getting started and feel a bit overwhelmed, I hope Steve's story has shown you that strength training isn't about fitting into someone else's mold. It's about creating your own path. And if we look at some of those key takeaways that might help you with getting started. So first, we need to start with what feels comfortable. Steve just started with bodyweight squats and those push-ups on the kitchen work surface. Next, it was about building the habit without worrying about the results. So he just started with these 10 to 15 minute snacktivities, and that created the foundation for everything else to follow. Third, really important to have a meaningful why. So again, for Steve, this wasn't about vanity or anything related to that. This was about being able to lift his grandson and be able to confidently travel independently. And then finally, celebrate small wins along the way. Steve's detailed tracking and weekly celebrations turned each small progression into motivation for the next. So the question becomes not about whether you are a gym person or not. It's whether you are ready to become a stronger version of yourself. And if we want to do that, we need to start small, stay consistent, and trust the process. And if you need any help creating a system for yourself, then do check out the ebook we mentioned. So it's nevertoldtolift.com/ebook. And that's going to help guide you through understanding what strength training is, but more importantly, how you can build a program around your current ability levels and your goals that you want to be able to achieve. So again, nevertoldtolift.com/ebook, and that will be in the description below, or you can find that through your podcast player. If you found any value from this and you're watching on YouTube, do take a second to give this a like. And then more importantly, I'd love to know what your main takeaway was. So leave a comment below and let me know what you enjoyed about the episode, if you've got any messages to pass on to Steve. But for now, I will see you in next week's episode.